It is 8:38 past the hour, and now we say good morning to John Strickland.
Good morning, John. Morning, guys. It's good to be here.
Who is, of course, candidate for mayor of Pinehurst. 4 of you this time. What is a sudden rush on everybody wanting to become mayor, huh?
Well, Pinehurst is a great town, and we have a lot of talent, and I think it leads one to conclude that when one can become the mayor of Pinehurst, it's a great opportunity to help the village. So I think all of us are interested in doing that.
All right. Well, John Strickland, this is your first run at mayor?
First time running for mayor.
You've been on the council.
I have been. I've been on the village council the last 4 years and living back here in Pinehurst for the last 10 years. I'm a third generation Pinehurst resident by retirement, have been preceded here by my grandparents and parents. So I have learned a lot about the village over a long period of time in my life.
And you have a lot of business experience too.
I do, and that's kind of why I'm running, Steve, to differentiate myself from some of the others that are running today. I have a 30-year career in banking and finance, and am the only person with any real private sector experience running for mayor at this time. And certainly the experiences I've had on the village council over the past 4 years, where I've also been acting as village treasurer, have provided me a lot of experience in the way government works, how our staff works, and that's led me to conclude that my credentials, looking to the issues of the next 4 years, are the reason I should run for mayor.
Now, as I tell a lot of folks all the time, I said, even though you don't live in Pinehurst, and it's still important that you care about who's on that council, because tourism is our industry here.
Yes.
And Pinehurst, of course, has a huge influence on that tourism. And of course, you all recognize how important it is also. But that all being said, what are some of the things that you think, if I'll stick the magic wand in your hand here and give you the 1, 2, 3 item, what are the top items on your tick list of things you like to get done?
Well, taking off from your own point there, our position in the tourism industry, you're absolutely right. That's a huge influence on Pinehurst and creates a lot of opportunities for us and some nice challenges for the future. But the way I'm organizing my campaign is really this. I have 4 areas that I'm focused on. And the first one of those is that we are in Pinehurst primarily a residential resort community. And we have grown as a premier residential community over the years. We have a series of wonderful neighborhoods, whether it's Clarendon Gardens or Village Acres or Pine Wild or Number 6. We have a great collection of neighborhoods that is really what brought everybody here. And I want to make sure that we are protecting our neighborhoods from growth that might not be appropriate. I oppose areas that will become more densely populated by new construction, particularly in our fill-in lots. We've had some issues in recent years where townhomes have been proposed to be built on single-family lots in existing neighborhoods, and I think that's the wrong thing to do. I'd like to preserve our density to what it has been designed to be. And that's just one example of how we can protect our neighborhoods that I've been working on. Secondly, we need to watch our budget and our fiscal responsibility. We're a good credit right now. We've had wonderful financial management in the village, but we also have some challenges into the future when growth is not going to be as significant as it was before, which means we need to watch our village costs. We need to be sure that we're getting the best result for the taxpayer that we can before ever considering raising taxes. And we need to be very concerned about the overuse of outside consultants and proposals that we receive that are not always well documented for funding. We need to make sure we're getting the best job done for our village taxpayers. Thirdly, I'm quite interested and concerned about the core village retail business. I think we can do a lot more to attract stores to the village. And I'm talking about the core village, but also our other retail centers in Pinehurst. Stores that meet the day-to-day needs of our residents. The residents are the most underserved part of our retail offerings today. We have wonderful shops that meet the needs of our guests and our hotel visitors, and also our residents. But we need to think about how we could get back to the general store concept or other stores that meet the day-to-day needs of our residents. And that's one of the things I'd like to work on as a part of village government. But it's up to the landlords and the other tenants to work with us on that and try to find ways to meet that need.
Well, we're talking with John Strickland, of course, who's candidate for mayor of Pinehurst. feeding off a few of the points you're bringing up here, and you know, in the way economics of towns work is that as far as the goods and services go, homeowners consume the most of those.
Yeah.
But commercial pays the disproportionate share of the taxes if you have commercial, which there is not much of in Pinehurst. How do you feel about adding any commercial to the area? And if you are in favor of any of that, what kind?
Well, that's a good point. I do favor commercial development. In our case, it would be sort of light commercial, I would call it, or commercial professional office buildings, that sort of thing, in areas that are available to do that. But we have to remember here, Steve, that we are, as I said, primarily a residential resort community, and the majority of our taxes come from residences, and we can grow that further. We ought not to overlook the idea of growing our residential base where we can, but we can diversify our tax base a bit by commercial development. If it's appropriate to Pinehurst, and I think of that being that I don't think we want to see commercial development that's going to bring a lot more traffic into the outlying areas of the village, because we have a huge traffic problem right now. We're sort of the crossroads for a lot of roads.
On that point, you know, a lot of folks, well, you know, there being no, I mean, you can't, as they say, you can't get a prescription filled in Pinehurst, you can't get a can of beans either.
Mm-hmm.
And so that means every single person in town must get in their car, must leave the corporate city limits of Pinehurst to do any real shopping.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know Taylortown's real close by, and otherwise you're shooting down 15501 or clogging up the traffic circle or whatever the case may be. But by always having to leave, that tends to increase the traffic problem. Whereas if you could shop in your own neighborhood, that would decrease the traffic problem. You have any? Do you agree with that at all? Or?
I do. You're absolutely right, and it's one of the things I've been talking about during the campaign. And here's how it connects. First of all, as I said, we need to find some stores, and the sort of general store concept keeps coming up all the time at meetings that I have. How could we get that concept into the village? Because as one of our dear friends, and yours too, I think Tom Stewart from the Old Sport Gallery likes to say, you know, you could bleed to death in Pinehurst now because you can't find a Band-Aid anywhere.
Wow.
So the point is, from a practical matter, to have people able to come into the village and find things there that they need day to day is a key aspect of what I'm trying to do. But related to that is another aspect of the work I've done on the council over the past few years. I realized 4 years ago when running for the village council that a lot of folks were interested in how they can connect into the village by bicycle and by walking. And we have a series of greenways which have developed over the years, but we need to expand that. So during the last 2 years almost, I've been a part of a study commission in the village to work on our greenway, bicycle, and pedestrian plan. And that plan has now been organized. And if we do it right over the next few years, we'll find a lot easier methods for people to get into the village without having to get in their car to hopefully take advantage of some of those new shops that we can provide to them.
Let's talk about the core of the village, downtown.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks say, you know, there's nothing to draw the local people down there. You know, that's more of a tourist place to hang out. You know, people go and, you know, and it looks good and has the character and all that. And nobody, I think, complains about the way it looks. But where would you, what if anything, would you like to do to that area?
To the village core?
Yeah.
Only thing is to help keep the shops filled, because the village core, as a part of the historic district, is really one of the magnets that draw people here, whether they're residents who want to show it to their friends when they visit, or whether it's our visitors from the hotel and other places that come through Pinehurst. They like to see the unique nature of the design of the village core, and we have to thank Mr. Olmsted, Mr. Manning, and Mr. Tufts, and Donald Ross himself, you know, for providing that to us. So other than trying to find additional and better stores to meet our needs, as I've described, I wouldn't want to do much more to it. Now, over the past 3 or 4 years, one of the things we've done in the village council, though, is to work on our streetscapes, work on our beautification efforts of the village so that it's attractive to people when they come to town, just from a physical flora and fauna kind of point of view. But I think those are the things we need to do to try to draw people there. There's a misunderstanding though, Steve, and I'll take this opportunity to talk about it with you. There's a misunderstanding about what shops are in the village. There's really a lot more there than some people give the village credit for. Did you know, for example, that there's now a full-scale ice cream and sandwich shop in the theater building? People have always been looking for ice cream around Pinehurst, and we've had a couple of shops try to do that over the years, but now we have a nice shop doing that. Did you know that we have 3 new shops on Market Square? One is a tiramisu, which is returned to Pinehurst. The other is a maternity and children's shop called Bump and Baby, which is, I think, going to be a great store for Pinehurst. And the other is a specialty store featuring men's hunting clothing, and that's also on Market Square. But beyond that, we've got a whole number of stores and that people should take advantage of, and restaurants as well.
What about the Historical Society? Sometimes I feel like, from what I read, that the tail wags the dog instead of the other way around. Who's in charge in that town? Is it the Historical Society or is it the council?
And you're talking really about two aspects, I think, Steve. You're talking about the National Park Service, which administers for all of the country all of our landmarks. And of course, Pinehurst from 1996 is a national landmark. And then we have our own historic district, which is part of that landmark, and our own historic commission. But the village government, village council specifically, and our staff are the one that manage the dog or wag the dog, however you want to say it. But we do have a responsibility to maintain a close relationship with the Park Service on areas that affect our stewardship of Pinehurst.
But you had the final say, is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, the village always will determine what is right for Pinehurst and what it needs to do. What's happened in the past?
Determined I know too much attention's been given to the grassy patch in the patio, but who has the final say on that?
Well, it's interesting you'd ask. I think of all of us in Pinehurst would like to know that the patio is going to stay there. It's been a nice advantage to the roast office and the outpost. Maybe it becomes a grass patio, not a brick patio, but it still can be there. But here's some important aspects of that, and I certainly am in favor of trying to retain the patio. The issue there is not a village issue. It's not even a National Park Service issue. The issue is between the owner of the building, who's a wonderful investor in Pinehurst, and the State Historic Office, because the building came with certain covenants attached to it, and that was well known. And the patio was put in without consulting with the state office before it was done. I think if it had been consulted upon before and put in, maybe a different result would occur. But let's see how that evolves.
I haven't read the actual covenant that they're trying to refer to, but it seems like if you ever want to make any change, the answer is always no.
I don't know that the answer is always no. I think what needs to happen in all historic properties and districts around the country, including ourselves, is that when you're working with the Park Service, or you're working with the state office, or you're working just with the village on our own historic commission, on our own planning and zoning board, you need to ask first when something's known to be an exception. So always check first, and then a good result can usually happen.
But I think also, you tell me whether you agree or not with this. Sometimes the rules get so restricted. They try to make the rules fit every situation,
right?
And it can't,
right?
And they don't leave enough flexibility there to be able to come by and say, all right, does this improve the situation or not? If it's not, then take it out. If it does, hey, just because it doesn't fit the printed page, maybe we should allow it.
I totally agree. And Pinehurst is unique. And there's another community that I'm familiar with, not in this state, that is a living community like Pinehurst that is also a National Historic Landmark. And the issue becomes, you need to dialogue, you need to discuss. Here's an example which I agree with you about. When the roundabout was built at Carolina Vista and Highway 2, that was a good solution for Pinehurst. I think it was a wonderful idea, kind of fit the curvilinear style of our streets. The Park Service retrospectively objected to it. I didn't think that was really the right response because there were a lot of issues that made that roundabout the right thing to do at the time. And I think there are other areas like that we've faced in the past, and we'll do the right thing for the village moving forward. But again, with any of our other stakeholders, whether it's the resort, the community college, the hospital, Fort Bragg, we have a dialogue relationship on issues that affect all of us. We need to have that same relationship with the Park Service And I think, given my background, I can make sure that happens.
We're talking with John Strickland, who is candidate for mayor. The area that might have, I may not know the right names. The area over there near the Arboretum, that the failed development that now is the eyesore of Pinehurst. A little. Is there anything that can be done with that? Because I know it's owned by someone else.
Well, yeah, you're talking about, I think, primarily traditions of Old Town development that was proposed by a developer from Raleigh about 6 years ago. Yeah. It's directly across from the opening to the Arboretum, the entrance to the Arboretum. And at least they're keeping the grass cut now. So the village had to do that for a while. And there is a new, I believe there's a new investor who is looking at what could be done with the property. My view, and this has been consistent since the earliest days of the developer who failed, is that what needs to happen there as far as residences are concerned is this. One of the areas in Pinehurst that we lack a lot of supply for housing is in townhomes and maintenance-free communities that would allow people who want to sell their single-family home, move to a smaller location, still be in Pinehurst, and in that place you've got the village on one side and the Arboretum on the other. What could be better? And to have a community like that put into that area. That's a need we don't fill very well among our housing areas in the village today. So that's an idea I hope will be the result there. And that idea would cater to single-family homeowners, as I mentioned, but also I think some of our professional folks coming into town who want to own something and live there, but may not want a larger home or a larger lot to take care of. I think there is some new interest in the property, Steve. We'll just have to see what develops. It's in their hands. They'll have to approach the village when they have a plan, but there's been no plan that I'm aware of today.
Well, time is flying by here, and I'm down to about 3 minutes, and I want to make sure you got the opportunity to stress what is important to you.
Well, thank you very much. I think, as I mentioned earlier, the areas that I'm focusing on, neighborhoods, financial growth and stability, our village center retail business, and our National Historic Landmark status, and really beyond that, the whole marketing of Pinehurst as a community. Those are the things that I'm primarily focused on. And I think that the type of background I've had in the private sector and the experiences I've had in village government over the last few years will really sustain me in meeting the challenges of the future. You know, we have a great opportunity in Pinehurst to partner with some of our major stakeholders, particularly the resort, but also the hospital as the next few years unfold. And I think that one of the areas that I've been talking about, which I haven't heard from other candidates, is the whole idea of what we do to present Pinehurst Village as its own brand. The resort has its brand in golf and recreation, and they're well known for that, and they do a wonderful job of that. And that is a part of the greater Pinehurst, of course. But I think what the village needs to do is to develop our own brand and present the fact that we are this wonderful resort residential community to the rest of the world, at least to the East Coast of the United States. And I think that will begin to bring people back here who've been delayed in moving here over the past few years due to the recession, but to remind them of the quality of our neighborhoods, the quality of our shops, the quality of our financial resources, and the quality of our historic district, which really makes us a wonderful place to live. We don't do a very good job right now of kind of marketing ourselves to the rest of the country, and I would like to do that as the next mayor.
Well, you just got that survey back, and it seemed everybody seemed to like overall everything that's going on. Not that many complaints.
No, that's true. There are some areas we need to work on, and those are areas that I'm concerned about because they do reflect on our neighborhoods and other things. Among them, we need to continue to work on our code enforcement. We need to be flexible. We need to do the right thing, but we do need to make sure we're retaining the quality of the look and appearance of our neighborhoods by working with our residents to make sure they're informed about what our codes are and for them to comply on a voluntary basis. But if not, then we need to work in other ways.
And with that, we got to wrap it up. John Strickland, candidate for mayor of Pinehurst. Thanks for coming in and being our guest and sharing your views. And for the rest of